female husband 29 male, and I are separated. His friend 29 male asked me out. My husband and I were together for 9 years, married for 6. We separated almost a year ago. We didn't separate on good term, and the only communication we've had in the past year has been through lawyers or occasionally family. The reason behind the separation is because we had a fight where I was trying to express that I was unhappy with the state of our relationship life. My husband took it as a personal attack and told me he had given me everything and more than what a woman could want in life. He made it seem like I was being ungrateful and wouldn't listen when I told him he was giving me the things he thought I should want and not the things I actually wanted. Things got very heated and he ended up telling me that he wasn't holding me hostage and I could always leave if I was so miserable. I asked him if he really meant it and if he wanted me to leave, but he refused to answer, so I took his answer as a yes. I moved out a week later, even though he told my sister that I could stay in our marital home and he would move out. We haven't spoken since. We have a friend, Dean, who my husband has known for 20 or so years. Ever since Dean found out my husband and I separated, he has been texting me non-stop. He's one of the few mutual friends who still contact me. The rest have made it known that they would prefer to stay close to my husband instead of me. At first it was just harmless texts like asking me how I was doing and offering to help me with things if needed it. But now his messages have become flirty and he asked me out a few months ago. I told him I wasn't sure it was a good idea because I wanted to focus on myself and getting through the divorce. He said he understood, but he has just increased his flirting and has even gone so far as to send me flowers and gifts. More than once. I confided in my sister, and she told me to stop talking to Dean. My sister thinks my husband and I might be able to work things out, but I don't see it happening, since he won't even talk to me. She also said she thinks Dean is trying to use me as some sort of sick revenge against my husband. A few years back my husband was supposed to open a business with Dean, but my husband changed his mind last minute. Their friendship was never the same after that. It also doesn't help that Dean's career has stagnated, while my husband is doing very well for himself. My sister is insisting I have to reach out to my husband and tell him about Dean. I don't know if I should. He doesn't want to talk to me, and I don't know if he would even believe me at this point. Also, I did confide in the wife of my husband's best friend, because we're still close and now I'm worried she might tell her husband, who will definitely tell me. What do I do? Too long didn't read. My husband and I separated a year ago. His friend kept reaching out when he found out about our separation. His messages eventually turned flirty and he asked me out. I turned him down, but he just flirts more now and he has sent me flowers and gifts more than once. There is an entire world out there filled with people that have no connection to your husband. If your husband won't have communication with you, and I'm guessing won't go to therapy, there is no hope for your marriage, and frankly I don't know how much energy I would direct towards it. Leave Dean alone. Get your divorce finalized and move on to a completely fresh start. Whether or not it's appropriate to date your ex's friend, this guy's kinda trashy. He's been your ex's friend for 20 years, but as soon as you split he's right there, which is a bit suspicious. He's flirty, which you've explained you don't like, but he does it anyway. He's clearly neither a good friend to your husband nor to you in your time of need. I don't think this is a great guy. There's probably a good reason your ex backed out of the business plans with this guy. There is zero need for you to reach out to your ex to tell him about this. You haven't spoken a word to each other since the split. You are effectively no longer in each other's lives. It would be weird to reach out to say your friend is flirting with me. I agree with your sister. Go MC with D. I disagree with your sister about contacting your ex about it. If it's been a year and you haven't talked, it is time to file papers. Sure, you could have stayed, but dollars to donuts, your husband wouldn't have moved out, nor made any changes, because in his eyes he's fulfilled his end of the bargain. It sounds like you have a fundamental disagreement on what treating the other person well means, and even if you are totally unreasonable, that's no reason to lock yourself into an unhappy situation. Move on from this wild thing. I think you already know you need to stay the heck away from Dean. This is a super scumbag move, not to mention so predatory. Your divorce isn't even finalized, and he jumps into the ends immediately. It's a big red flag. And in everything that you've mentioned, stay away from him, please. There are plenty of men for you out there. Dean sounds messy, and it also sounds like it would inflame the already bad communication you have with your husband. There's something distasteful with him contacting you romantically immediately after I heard of your marriage ending. Perhaps today I learned at least the divorce is done. Don't date friends. Once you have everything properly arranged, it gets easier, because whatever he does has no impact on you any longer instead of getting stuck in legal drama. You're not divorced yet, right? Wouldn't you entertaining this friend in a flirty way be seen as proof of you being at fault, or maybe given the impression of being unfaithful in court? So if your husband and this friend are doing this together, your texts can be used to make you look bad. And if they aren't, then it's still not as if this friend is actually supporting you. He doesn't respect you enough to not ignore the boundary you set, and he even started flirting more after you told him you're not interested. When he realizes that he can't blatantly flirt and ignore your boundaries, he's probably going to drop you as soon as he can, since he's not exactly offering you his friendship, is he? I believe marriage is always worth fighting for. I believe in vows, and I believe that many problems couples have can be solved with good communication. I think your husband is being stubborn. He is probably hurt from the situation too, and you are also hurt by how he responded to you. But maybe if you take the first step, only if you do still love him, and just tell him, ask him that you love him, and that you are willing to figure out a way to work through things. If he still loves you, maybe you can't solve things alone. Maybe you'll need a counselor to aid you in communication. But if there is love, I think stubbornness should be placed aside. My husband and I had a really rough start, and once we learned to communicate properly and learn each other's love language is an amazing book that helped us too. We have been more in love than ever, and I find myself falling more in love with him as our communication skills get stronger. Now, with all this in mind, if you truly are out of love with your husband, by all means, do not fight for something that you have moved on from, and focus on it. Don't rush into anything new, and along the way, learn what does make you happy. Whether or not you and your husband will work things out, I don't know. That's your choice. But the idea that Dean might be using you for revenge sounds a little plausible, but it's still speculation. The important factors here are Dean's behavior and your needs. You turned him down because you didn't feel it was a good idea to get involved with him, and he kept pursuing you. That's an instant red flag for me. You set a boundary and he crossed it multiple times. I don't trust people like that. I know that movers make persistence like that look sweet and romantic, but the truth is it's just selfishly disregarding another person's feelings, your feelings. I would tell Dean more firmly to stop. If he doesn't stop, then you'll know that he doesn't respect your choices. If he does stop, problem solved. I do think that, even if you don't see Dean's behavior as worrying totally your call, that you should still avoid dating him. Dating an old friend of the man you are still divorcing could really blow up in your face. Especially if you started dating him before the divorce proceedings were over. It would make you look insensitive or even unfaithful to sexists. In fact, it's possible your husband, who would probably be really pissed if the two of you ended up together, could use it against you somehow personally, if not legally. I just wouldn't go there. I know this ain't what your post is about, but you make it sound like both you and your husband are waiting for the other one to fix things. His response to you bringing up issues was to put the fate of the relationship on you. You left because he wouldn't tell you to stay. No word from either of you since. You're both being stubborn mules. If you want to fix your marriage, stop waiting for him to come face you. He's probably waiting for you to come to him since you left. Just like you're waiting for him because he reminded you the relationship was voluntary. Don't date Dean. And no, not because of any connections to your ex, although they matter, because you wrote an entire post full of details yet don't mention how you feel about Dean. You don't call him attractive, or kind, or a good listener, or handsome. You don't mention how you feel when he flirts with you. Don't go into a new relationship with a guy you feel at best lukewarm about. especially if you are questioning his motives. A year isn't that long. Maybe you aren't emotionally ready for a new relationship, and that's okay. But if you are, wait for someone who actually sets your heart on fire and gives you feelings. Would you like if your husband dated your sister? We don't choose our family, but we do choose our friends. Also, you may want to mention it to your husband. He should know that this guy immediately slid into your DMs, but at the end of the day, it's your choice. But it is suspicious. It also tells me something, that he immediately slid in. A mature person who really wanted a relationship with you would give you time. Your sister may be right. It's possible he just wants to smash, to screw with your husband. But even worse, he may just string you along long term to get back at your husband. Based on what your sister says, it sounds like a hassle not worth having. Get Tinder and you'll get a million interested men. Turn him down. There are several reasons for this. One, you think he could be using you to get revenge. That is complicated, and better left avoided. 2, you're still separated, not divorced. What if having a liaison with your husband's friend somehow complicated the divorce terms? 3, you turned him down. At some point, not taking no for an answer turns from persistent to neglectful of your own consent. For there are so many people out there who aren't associated with your husband. Start there. As for everything else, I don't see a reason why your husband needs to know, or needs to be kept from knowing about his friends flirting. If you stop the friend in his tracks, a firm no, followed by blocked communication, it'll be a moot point anyway. I don't see the reason for involving your soon-to-be ex-husband in this. I would also assume that the friend you told has told her own husband, so your STB ex already knows. You've already told Dean no. I good guy will respect this, but keep in touch. If he is really interested, you've known Dean long enough to properly judge if he is a genuinely good guy or not. Would he hold on to a grudge this long? Is he being unreasonably pushy? Either way, I would not worry about Dean. If you are curious or interested, then go on a date. And if you are not ready, then don't. You seem confident in yourself, and you've proven capable of standing up for yourself. Don't let him pressure you, and don't worry about what your husband thinks. I would advise you to seek support with family or therapy during this divorce. You need people who are on your side. If you don't want to give Dean attention, stop giving him attention. If he continues to send gifts and that makes you uncomfortable, ask him to stop. His reaction to your disinterest is on him. You're asking if you should stay in a small bubble or look at your options in a sea. Always pick the sea. I wouldn't feel obligated to tell your ex anything about anything except signing papers. Dean is opportunistic. He knows you are vulnerable and hurting. He also refuses to accept your no. Nothing good will come of having a relationship with him. He isn't any more likely to meet your needs than your husband was. Steer clear. If your husband has refused to speak with you in the last year, there is no hope for your marriage. Finalize your divorce. Free yourself to find a relationship where both your needs can be met. Don't do it, OP. You know it is unbelievable wrong to do anything with your soon-to-be ex-husband. The fact that Dean is trying to get you tells you he was never your friend. He was never your husband's either, just a little weasel of mine. If you had any respect for your husband, you would tell him what his so-called friend has been doing. There's a whole world out there. You can do better than his blow-dye best mate. Also, you're not divorced, so sleeping with his best mate is only going to hurt your position in terms of a legal standpoint. By the way, just reading over this, things got very heated, and he ended up telling me that he wasn't holding me hostage and I could always leave if I was so miserable. I asked him if he really meant it, and if he wanted me to leave, but he refused to answer, so I took his answer as a yes. You and your husband both sound way too proud. Him for not telling you to stay and you for leaving. Obviously, he's going to be at a loss for words about the relationship, because I bet up until that point he thought everything was going well. Leave seriously. If you go out with his friend, then you will still run into your ex, so feelings can get all mixed up and this can become an unresolved cycle. If you do go out with his friend, then he might lose his friend and you, plus he can, and most likely will talk shit about you to other people and maybe even put posts and updates about what you did to him on social media. I have a brother, and in high school we both crushed on this girl. I'm on the heavier, bulkier side, while my brother is on the leaner, skinner side. He asked my blessing to date her, because she really liked him, and he thought it would have been a dick move to just start going out with her. And I'm not mad, never was mad at my brother, or else I wouldn't have said he could go out with her. The sting of her choosing my brother over me, even though everybody liked everybody, still hurt, and sucked till about a year later. In my opinion, divorcing before dating is good rule to live by. If he can't respect that, then he won't respect other boundaries either. And also, divorce because this is taking too long. After divorce, there are two real questions. Do you actually want to date him? Or you are just thankful to him for not abandoning to don't date him if you don't actually want to date him. Second, that he wants to date you, or he wants to hurt husband. Don't date if you think his interest is more about X. If you feel like wanting to be single for a while, don't date him. It would just hurt both of you. Thanks for watching. Consider subscribing for more videos.